with pigs, we have miniature pigs. We have pigs that you can alter the genes so that the organs stop growing after a certain size to make it fit what humans are. And most pigs are like a lot of the miniature pigs are of human size. So they are available. They breed fast, short breeding, short gestation, large litter, fairly inexpensive maintenance. Although the ones that are going to be used for organ transplantation.
So welcome everybody to another episode of the Swine Canada podcast. I am Dan Columbus and I'll be your host for today's episode. I have a returning guest with me today, Dr. Ali Honaramooz, who is a professor of Veterinary Biomedical Sciences at the University of Saskatchewan. So welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So I know you introduced yourself in the last episode, but I'll just ask again, for those that maybe didn't listen to that one, to give a little bit of your background before we get into the topic.
For sure. So I got my veterinary degree in Iran and came to Canada to do my Ph.D. After my Ph.D., I went to the States at the University of Pennsylvania to do more research as part of my postdoc. And then I was recruited back at the University of Saskatchewan, this time as a prof. And that's where I've been for the past 20 plus years doing research and teaching DVM students here.
Yeah. So in the last episode, we were talking about your work with using the pig as a model, specifically for that one with testicle development and fertility and stuff like that. And today we're going to talk about your work with xenotransplantation, which has kind of been all over the news, at least maybe locally, because of some big grants that you've got recently. But before we get into it, maybe let's just talk a little bit more about what makes the pig such a good model or a good animal for use in this area.
For sure. So again, because pigs have, in terms of anatomy, physiology, and genetics, very much similarities to humans. But on the other hand, one would say, why not primates, which are developmental-wise probably closer to humans. So say baboons or chimpanzees or baboons that have been used in the past could be an option. But we know that in terms of their use, it's a whole lot more ethically involved. They don't reproduce as easily. It takes a long time for them to develop. And they are sentient animals. Like a lot of ethical issues, animal welfare issues inhibit that. But on the other hand, pigs breed fast. They have short pregnancy. They have large litter size. And because of all those other similarities to humans and the knowledge of their genome that we have now, it's a good combination that you can produce them in large scale and use them. And of course, it takes a lot of research in various aspects, be it in the lab, be it in pre-clinic, all the way to ethical, to legal aspects. Everything is totally different ball game when you're dealing with pigs. For all of those reasons, I would say after 1980s, the research has switched to the use, or at least trying to use, pigs for organ xenotransplantation, at least as a candidate.
Working with nature and not against it, piglets fed AX3 see significant and improved feed efficiency. Producers know the reality of needing to reduce antibiotic and zinc use. AX3 Digest is a highly digestible novel protein that promotes improved in-barn performance, piglet health, and minimizes the need for zinc in the diet. For more information, visit www.protecta.com. That's www.protecta.com.
Yeah. So I guess before we get into the specifics of that, maybe let's talk a little bit first about the status of human organ transplantation, where we are with that, and maybe why this is something that's necessary to be looking into.
So we know that one of the main reasons people die of old age is organ failure. Today, they believe about 1 million Canadians would have some disease related to vital organs, heart, kidney, or liver. And sometimes failure of those organs lead to disability and even death. Changing those organs or replacing those organs is an option. It's something that, these days Canada is a leading country in doing organ transplantation from a deceased donor into recipients. But there is not sufficient number of organs becoming available to address all the needs. And healthcare is spending like $50 billion a year on care of these failing organs. And so there is a big list of people who are in the list of eligibility for organ donation. In the US, 90,000 people are waiting for organs, and I believe like 300 die per day waiting for an organ. So there is not nearly enough organs for everybody in the list. And if organ was not an issue, I can imagine that list would have grown 5 times as much. And a lot of times, replacing organ becomes the only option. There are other things you could try to fix it. You could try to replace cells or tissues, but sometimes replacing the whole solid organ is the only thing you can do. And again, that way they get onto that list. Humans are living longer. The population is getting older. So this problem is just going to get worse as time goes by. So something has to come as an alternative, and xenotransplantation, which is transplantation from one species to the other, in this case, potentially from pigs to humans, is more and more an option that people are looking at.
Yeah. So you talked about a little bit of the suitability of pigs in general for this type of work, right? But what is it specifically that makes them more suitable for xenotransplantation versus maybe something like a primate that would technically be closer to a human?
So availability. So in terms of logistics, you would have a hard time finding a large enough colony of primates to supply anything close to even doing research, let alone actual, future use in clinic. On the other hand, with pigs, we have miniature pigs. We have pigs that you can alter the genes so that the organs stop growing after a certain size to make it fit what humans are. And most pigs are a lot of the miniature pigs are of human size. So they are available. They breed fast, short breeding, short gestation, large litter, fairly inexpensive maintenance. Although the ones that are going to be used for organ transplantation are not your everyday barn pigs. They're going to be living in such a condition you may want to move in with them. They would have germ-free environment. They would be handed through C-section through a window into a facility where everybody is working under biosafety level 2 or 3. And they're fairly pampered, and they have to produce medical grade organs, right? So, and those would be genetically modified as well.
So, I mean, you're growing these pigs in, like you said, a biosafety level 3 or whatever, to make sure that they are they're safe,
Right.
So I guess, but the other thing that I'm thinking with primates is that there is still that potential for disease transfer, specifically because they are so close.
It is, yes. In fact, as we know, a lot of diseases such as, the immune suppression, like AIDS and so on, probably came from primates. And that could be a double-edged sword that, you may have problems that way. You may initiate new diseases that you weren't even thinking of.
Yeah. So I guess the big question now, what does it take to make pig organs suitable for xenotransplantation? Because I assume you can't just take a heart out of a pig and put it into a human.
No, in fact, human immune system has developed over God knows how long, millions of years, specifically to make sure that foreign cells can't survive in the human body. So again, as part of the development of the immune system, which halfway through fetal stage, our immune system becomes active and does a survey of all cells in the body. And at that time, it identifies every cell as friend, and something else that comes in would be a foreign. So during evolution, humans and some primates lost some critical carbohydrates on their cell surface. Every other mammalian species that we talk about, they have these carbohydrates on their surface, those sugars, alpha-gal being one of them. And so if you put a regular pig or any other animal other than human or some primates into human body, they would be rejected like that. It's called hyperacute rejection because it's as if they stand out like a thumb, sore thumb. So one of the first things you want to do with pigs is to remove those carbohydrates so that at least you don't have super hyperacute rejection. And that has been done. So it was in the 80s that they produced gal-free pigs, which by just genetic modification, they deleted the gene responsible for those alpha-gal on the cell surface. So all of a sudden, we're down to other sorts of immune rejections, and there is plenty. There is acute vascular, there is acute cellular, there is chronic rejection, and but at least the hyperacute one is out of the picture because it can work within minutes. The organ becomes attacked right away, the vasculature within it, and blood supply to it is cut off, and it turns black in front of your eyes before you're done suturing. But the presence of alpha-gal on the cell surface was the main problem. The other problem, specifically with pigs, is the presence of endogenous porcine retroviruses, PERVs, which we know that each mammalian species, in their own genomes have something, if you want to call junk, retroviruses, because they inject their own genome into the genome of the host. Over their evolution, have integrated their genes into the genome of humans or any other species. As there is no harm apparently in having them. But if you want to transfer pig cells or organs into humans, there is a concern that you may wake up some of those dormant genes. Say you don't want to get that gene out of the bottle. You don't know what might come out of it. So you need to kind of try to clean that genome, which is easier said than done, because in case of pigs, for example, anywhere from 50 to 60 or more different locations within the genome can have those retroviruses. But it has been done. So that is the next big thing that has allowed organ transplantation to find new interest.
How easy is it to do this, right? When we're talking about genome editing or other aspects.
With the advent of genome editing, and especially the recent CRISPR-Cas9 technology, which allows genetic editing on multiple locations in the genome at the same time, things have become conceivable. It's not easy. You can't, it's not something you can do in your kitchen. But especially if you are doing transgenic, it becomes excessively more difficult to do. But it has been done. There are companies and universities that are working in parallel, basically together, and they're making transgenic pigs of their own. The proof of principle that came with the transplantation of a pig heart into a patient, that Mr. Bennett 2 years ago, which had a terminal disease, and he was going to die any day, and government allowed that as a sort of one-time clinical trial to be done, and it gave him another 60 days to live with the pig heart. And that pig had several genes changed, including didn't have the alpha-gal, and it had some human genes in it to convey immune similarity in terms of immune tolerance. But eventually it failed. And then we had, other work, including the latest one in March, where they put a pig kidney in a patient, and the patient, as the latest I know, was released from the hospital and is being monitored, and apparently is doing okay. So the field is moving in that direction, and just these proof of principles indicate that we are in a different era. I mean, it went from basic theory to actual potential, and now there are a lot of different research groups that are working on this.
Yeah. So what are the other maybe technical, safety, or I mean specifically thinking, ethical issues that might come with or hurdles, that might be in more widespread development or implication of this?
In this situation, the research has advanced a whole lot faster than the regulations or ethical frameworks and guidelines in terms of safety. And those would have to catch up. And so there's different set of scientists who do ethical studies and so on. They have to work on this. Of course, there are important issues in terms of animal welfare, potential zoonotic diseases, and environmental factors. You don't want those transgenic pigs humanized in terms of their genome to just be out all of a sudden in the environment. And again, safety and so on is also a concern. Ethical treatment of the animals, availability for various populations of humans. Different religions may view this differently. What I've heard is that even in Islamic and Jewish faith, they because they don't consider pigs as something they can touch or eat, but apparently to save humans, at least what I've heard is that is something that is probably allowable, but it needs a lot of work, right? There's important issues ahead and challenges, both technically, but also in terms of regulation and ethical guidelines ahead. Yeah.
So yeah, like I mentioned at the beginning, it's been out that you've received some funding in this area. So I guess one of the last questions I have is what's the status of your research specifically in this area, and when do you think that your research will start to contribute? I lost the words.
For sure. So this specific research grant is fairly new. We have already started working on the basics. What advantage that we have is that in the past 20 years and so, we have been working on various on producing transgenic pigs using an alternative route, and that is the germ cell transplantation that I indicated earlier in the previous episode, where we would take testis cells from a regular pig. In the lab, we would digest it, get single cells, then we can modify genome of those stem cells in the testis. And same day, we could go back and put them in recipient animals. And then within a few months, they would start producing transgenic sperm. As opposed to doing, say, cloning, which you would work with, a few day old embryos, and then you would have to put them in the animal. So the gestation period, and then wait for them to become adult, produce a sperm. So we're skipping one generation, for example. That's just one aspect of that. And there are other advantages in this route also. So we're hoping that we can still jump onto this area. If anything, we learned from the COVID is that we cannot rely on other countries to make, masks and vaccines and, other things for us. And we have to get onto this area of research really soon. And we're hoping that this seed money can help us do that. And we have great advantages here at the University of Saskatchewan. As you know, we are the only big university in Canada that has all of the disciplines in biology and medical related in one campus. We have the medical college, vet college, pharmacy, nursing, and all of those here. We also That's main advantage is that, as you know, we have Vido Intervac here, which is one of the only research facilities that can work with large animals at biosafety level 3. And that is something that there is only a few of them around the world, and certainly not many in North America. Probably the largest one is here on this campus.
Definitely looking forward to seeing what you find and advancing this science. I find this very interesting. One of my things is always the pig as a model, and I've done some of that research in my past, and I think it's great. So before we get to our final 3 questions, again, I'll ask for this episode, if you have a final take-home message for the audience.
Like any other advances in research, sometimes people have reservations. They're worried. Are we messing with God's will, for example, so on. And it takes time for a lot of things as I said, regulations, safety measures, and ethical guidelines and frameworks to be in place. So we're not talking about tomorrow. Nobody's expecting that to happen. It probably is something that would happen in our lifetime, but it could be 5 to 10, 15 years away from actual larger scale clinical trials. But it's something that would happen, I would say, and would change the whole medical field altogether. We have come to accept that somebody losing kidneys is destined to, dialysis and have a difficult time dealing with it. If you can have, kidneys transplanted to you, then you can more easily go back to your life. So my take-home message is this is an exciting area of research, and hopefully will help thousands and thousands of people to come. And it's just the beginning, and hopefully as I said, by the time the technical aspects are taken care of, the other aspects are at the stage that people would feel more comfortable seeing that as an option.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And, it also highlights something that I think a lot of people don't get is the amount, like the decades sometimes of research that goes into something before it's implemented in the public. So it's not
Exactly.
like we try this the next day in people.
No, that's right. Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, before I let you go, we're going to have our 3 questions now.
It's time for our famous 3.
You got out of it in the first episode, but I'm going to ask them in this one. So our first question is, what is your favorite swine-related resource?
I survey literature as it comes. As you know, we look at PubMed on a daily basis, and we get notifications when anything in the area comes. So my source is mostly scientific literature, the papers in the area, especially with pig models.
Okay. The next question, maybe a little bit easier, is a favorite book or resource that you would recommend to the audience.
I try to do work on myself as a person. So when I'm doing something, I always have other podcasts listening to in terms of, as I said, self-growth is what I work. Specifically, I probably shouldn't say one specific area, but I usually go from one to another. I have a lovely wife who is a psychologist and counselor, and I get a lot of hints from her where I should go and look for information.
Little subtle hints. Maybe you should look into that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And then our last question is, when you look back at leaders or mentors that you've worked with in your life, what is an aspect or a characteristic that you think they have that makes them successful?
I think surrounding yourself with people who are smarter than yourself is one thing. I mean, they say you're the average of 4, 5, 10 people that you spend time the most with. So I have been fortunate to have very talented students in my lab, and I'm surprised how wide their ideas are. Sometimes I feel like this idea or research is too premature, but then I remind myself that, hey, if you don't want to look out of the box, you may not, see out of the box. So, as I said, a lot of these research that we have been doing, we have been surprised by the results. And again, part of it is because we haven't been afraid of trying something that sounds a bit crazy at the beginning, but it can pay at the end. And so my best advice is to just find the most intelligent and smart people around you, have an open mind about it, and be willing to accept that you might be wrong. You have only one idea. Listen to others. And
definitely a good thing. Well, it's been great having you on again. I am really interested to see what you find with this, and so I'm sure we'll have you on the podcast again when you start getting some more research results from your work, your upcoming work. So thanks again.
Of course, I would love to. Thank you very much.